Hello, everyone. Hope you can hear me.
We can now.
I'm here.
Hello.
Hello to everyone. Hi. Lots of people I haven't seen before. Lots of people I have seen before. Kath is going to chair the meeting today, so I will just do a very brief introduction to the Mental Health Partnership Forum, something that I started about 6 years ago, really to network and kind of get to know each other, so that we really work as a system and we're not all working in these little silos, and for us to really get to know what's out there to support the patients, service users, customers out there. So today is a session around spirituality and mental health, and we've got a whole lot of speakers, and I'm delighted to welcome you all here. So my name's Simone Longley, and I am the operational manager of the Southend Primary Care Mental Health Team, which is practitioners who work in GP surgeries alongside our primary care colleagues, so that people have much faster, easier and proactive access to mental health expertise, which is amazing, is working really, really well. We had over 2,000 referrals last year, and I think we're going to have far more this year. Our service is growing, so we now have in almost every PCN in Southend at least 2 practitioners, and we've just had a social worker join our team, Tim Canny, who hopefully will be along to hear this afternoon. Kath can now introduce herself, and she'll be doing the chairing.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Mental Health Partnership Forum. There's a really full agenda today, so I'm going to keep us to task. Usual rules apply. If you've got any questions, pop them in the chat. Feel free to put your hand up. I will navigate back after every speaker, just if there's any questions. But there is actually a what's next and question session at the very end. So if your question doesn't get answered immediately after your speaker, don't worry. We'll have taken a note of it and do it at the very end. I will hand over, I'm guessing, to Ivor. I will let you introduce yourself.
Basically, I'm chair of something called the Essex Faith Covenant, and we had a meeting at Fairhavens in Southend last November, to which Camille Pachalko from the council was there, and Camille has been progressing, I think, quite successfully, as far as I'm aware, the membership of the Southend Borough Council on the Faith Covenant, which will link them to a county-wide effort to bring together faith communities and voluntary and statutory services together in dialogue with regards to mental health, spirituality and many other things. And it was Camille that suggested that I contact Georgina and become part of this forum, because I'm chair of something quite specific called Essex Mind&Spirit, which leads me on to today to talk about what that does, and the session at the end about what next refers specifically, I think, to a question I'd like to ask to the forum with regard to mind and spirit work, particularly in Southend. But before that, can I just thank my colleagues for joining me today. Sidra, and part of either the Faith Covenant, which I've already mentioned, and or they're also members of the Mid-Essex Interfaith Forum, which I also chair, and Sidra is also secretary of Essex Mind&Spirit, and Sidra and I, as I say, will be talking at the end about where we would like to take Essex Mind&Spirit in terms of Southend cooperation. But Camille, well, Georgina really suggested that we have a session with you all today, looking at mental health and spirituality, which is what Essex Mind&Spirit devotes itself to. Essex Mind&Spirit devotes itself to the relationship between faith and belief issues and spirituality, and hopefully one of the things we try and do is conduct a positive relationship between those two things, to conduct a positive and not a negative conversation as to how faith and spirituality can access, can help to understand mental health issues. And Essex Mind&Spirit has what we call cluster groups, which are situated across the county, and there are 4 at the moment currently in operation. Where I am in Chelmsford, there's one in Basildon, there's one in Epping, there's one in Colchester. And cluster groups, the clue is in the name really. What we seek to do is cluster together locally in a particular specific area of Essex. People from faith communities, service users, mental health professionals, volunteers, charities, you name it, they're invited. And we get them to come to a local area, to a local spot, hopefully over some food. Food's always important. A guest speaker is invited on some aspect of mental health and its understanding and its care and its management. But the main purpose of all of these cluster groups is to get people talking, to get people together, to get them to realise that they're not alone, whether they suffer from mental health issues or they help to relieve and resolve them. And that really is the one and only function of Essex Mind&Spirit. Every 3 or 4 years, we try and hold a county-wide conference. We've just held one in Chelmsford Cathedral back in April, and we invited the Essex County Council's Education Department to join us, and we held a conference on child and adolescents' mental health and spirituality, which was a really tremendous event and has spawned all sorts of follow-ups to that conference. So that's what we do. We try and make a greater and stronger and more positive awareness of mental health and spirituality and the link and the dialogue that can exist between them. And that's one of the offers of help that I can make to Christian churches when I come and talk to them and say to them, you are not alone. As carers, you are not alone, and you must not be alone. Okay, I think that's it, Catherine. I'll come back to
Thank you very much. There's a comment in the chat from Sandy to say thank you. It would be really great to have an Essex Mind&Spirit cluster group in all Essex towns and cities. Thank you.
That would be.
That's not good for my mental health, though.
I'm guessing it's not. And Sidra, I believe you are next. Are you good to go?
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much, everybody, for inviting me on this forum. I am the Secretary of Essex Mind&Spirit. I'm also a Muslim chaplain, a voluntary Muslim chaplain at Chelmsford College, St Luke's Hospice, Blue Water Shopping Centre, and a couple of other places. And within my own community, I'm actually qualified within religion as well. So I deal with a lot within the community, and I'm aware of mental health problems and things like that. Okay, so I'm going to very quickly cover 3 things. What are the issues that may lead to mental health within the Islamic community? What does the religion naturally do? What is in the religion that helps with mental health? And then the third thing is, why are people reluctant within the Muslim community to use mental health services, and why is there such a big stigma? So I've got a very quick PowerPoint. Okay, so what are the issues that are facing our youth? First of all, people who have just come from warm countries, the first thing they get depressed about is the weather. Okay, there's no sunshine here. Everybody's privately living in separate places. There's no community, not so much community like there is, back home in the warmer countries, and small, tiny houses, dark houses, there everything's open plan and everybody knocks on everybody's doors, and there's a lot more community culture. So that's the first thing. A lot of the youth nowadays, they're being bullied for their beliefs. Islamophobia is hugely on the rise since 9/11. And, there is a lot of bullying going on in schools, and that can lead to mental health problems. There's culture problems. If you are of a brown colour, then obviously there's going to be racism within schools at a certain degree. even if it's hidden. You know, people can feel a little bit different from everybody else. So that can lead to mental health problems. There's a huge identity crisis going on with the young youth nowadays. You know, for example, the children who are born and brought up here in this country, they very strongly believe they are British, and they may class themselves as white as well. Whereas everybody else who looks at their skin color or their religion will not class them as British. They're not British in their eyes. So there's this huge identity crisis where at home they may be pretend they are of the culture they are from, and then when they go out, they pretend they are not, just to fit in with peer pressure. So there's a huge amount of peer pressure, a lot more, I would say, with people from different ethnicities. Everybody needs to have a strong sense of identity. They need to know who they are and where they belong. And confidence is very important in that, being confident in who you are. It's when we try and be something that we're not, where all the problems are, really. That's what leads to mental health. We need to find our own identity, what we believe in, what we think we should be doing, where we belong. And that's not just religion, it's also culturally and looking at other things as well. There is the glass ceiling effect as well. You know, people with foreign names, they may be less likely to get into higher positions, higher jobs, or even get an interview, or even get into university. This does exist. And I have got personal stories actually, you know, about this. Although I would say it's getting much, much better, because nowadays there is a lot more equality out there for interviews and jobs and everything. It's getting better, but it has been there in the past. There's academic pressure. So people from back home who may come here, they find it very difficult to get jobs, and they have clocked into the system and found out that if you know, their children are educated, they've got a better chance for better jobs and better education, better university places. So there is sometimes a too much push towards 11 plus, get into grammar schools, you know, exams, no social life and the rest. So that one is a very important one. Academic pressure can lead to mental health problems, especially amongst the youth. And there is also, there can be more tendency to have mental health conditions that are linked genetically. So a lot of people from different ethnicities may marry within families, they may marry within tribes, within the African community, they may marry within their own sort of networks only. And what that does is that can replicate the genetics of anybody who's got mental health. So it can run in families. Okay, now let's look at the religion now. So in the religion, there are so many things that can help with mental health. For example, we do pray 5 times a day, and that helps in so many aspects. So let's have a look. So we pray 5 times a day, which gives structure to our lives. It gives a purpose. Not only is it a form of exercise, it decreases tension, tightness, arthritis is reduced, and the different positions of prayer are like yoga positions, and each position is scientifically proven to get rid of negative energy. So you can't go wrong with prayer. And the music, the rhythm, the rhyme that goes with the Quranic teachings, the verses of the Quran, they make people happy. And they release lots of different types of endorphins, which really, really helps for those who are following the Islamic faith and the prayers. And then at the end, 5 times a day, we are offloading to God. 5 times a day, offloading our worries, our problems, our anxieties, asking God for forgiveness, all of that. A problem shared is a problem halved. And we're doing that naturally 5 times a day. It's like a free counseling process. And it's just so good for us. It really is. The danger we've got with the prayer is that if you go to the local imam for mental health problem, they can turn around and say, well, just pray your 5 times, pray and you'll be fine. And that's where the problem, I would say, is. One of the problems is that the imams are not mental health trained within the Islamic religion. Their courses are privately run courses, and the privately run courses basically cover the Quran teachings or maybe the Prophet's life in black and white, but nothing else. And for mental health, an imam would need to recognize it in order to signpost that person elsewhere, or just ignore it. So there is a lack of knowledge amongst the religious leaders. And I would say that the religious leaders are the first port of call if somebody is suffering from stress and anxiety. So there is a big problem there. Let's look at some more things. In the religion is also fasting, and people who fast, there has been journals to prove that fasting is really good for mental health. Those who follow the 5-2 diet, which was actually introduced by Dr. Mosley, he himself said that that diet helped him because it releases neurotrophic factors in his brain and it helps with mental health. So that is, again, something very natural within the religion. We do not drink alcohol. And we know already that, binge drinking and, all that drunken culture can lead to mental health problems. So all of that, the fact that we cannot drink helps. We do have a closer family structure, which helps a lot with mental health. So people, for example, are more likely to live with grandparents or in-laws, mother-in-laws, things like that. And that helps. So if somebody is, for example, maybe thinking of committing suicide, for example, they will think twice before doing that, because they'll think, well, what will the family think? Or they may have a stronger bond with the grandparents, or, which will stop them actually committing suicide. And on the whole, people from different ethnicities do go back home to visit their relatives in warmer countries, and that brings the serotonin up, at least I would say twice a year, which is made from sunshine. So those are all the things naturally within the religion or within the culture. Now let us look at the stigma. Why is there such a big stigma in Islam? What stops people accessing the services? So, for example, this is especially from people who come fresh from home countries. They may not have the knowledge of genetics. So say somebody's sad, they may just put that down to personality, that person is miserable. Say they've got autism, or say they've got something else, that's just put down to personality, because they may not understand genetics and they may not have the diagnosis in their own home countries. So I would say our home countries are 10 years behind when it comes to mental health, autism, dementia, unknown terms back home, especially in the village culture. Okay, mental health can be understood as madness, and jinns, evil spirits, the devil, they do exist in the Islamic culture. And somebody who suffers from mental health, they can say, oh, well, they're just possessed by an evil spirit. Let's just do an exorcism and the jinn will come out and then they'll be fine, without looking at medication. This is a very, very big one within the Islamic religion. There is a big stigma that if one person gets a diagnosis of something, because of the closer family structure, it's going to affect everybody else in that family. Okay, marriage proposals for younger family members then is another problem. If someone gets stigmatized with mental health, well, what about the future marriage proposals and things? It's going to affect the whole family. Men, especially, who are classed as the leaders of the family, the breadwinners, they may think, if we're classed with mental health problems, what's going to happen with the rest of the family? And they are going to be classed as weak. They will appear weak in the family as the head of the household. And the perceived shame and stigma, there's a lot of doctors in our community. We push people to become doctors, dentists, higher professions because of this glass ceiling effect. And somebody on the left who's a doctor or a teacher, they're not going to say they've got mental health problems. They're not going to want a diagnosis because they'll be perceived as, you know, they've got a big reputation in the community for being a doctor. And special needs, disabilities, all of that kind of stuff, you know, it is less recognized within the Islamic culture because our countries back home have got less diagnosis of those. This one's a really big one. When it comes to dementia, you can forget it because it actually tells you in the Quran that when people become old, they become in a state of weakness and they will forget, and everything reverses in nature back down to being a child again. So anybody who's got dementia, they'll just take that as a natural way of life, that person has become weaker like a child, like it says in the Quran. So they don't seek medication or advice. And herbal remedies is a big one. A lot of people may end up having herbal remedies instead of the proper medication, for example, for higher psychosis and things like that. Okay, and those are all the things that stops anybody then accessing the services. That's it, I'm finished. Okay.
Thank you, Sidra. That was a really fascinating visit there for us. We have got a question, but Jamila, I have made a note of your question. I'm going to use the end sort of question session at about 3:20 to cover that question. So I have made a note of it. Please don't feel that we're ignoring you. All right, my love. Thank you very much. Sidra, we're going to have you again later as well, aren't we, along with Ivor? 5 minutes ever so quickly, just to summarise a lot of the stuff that's happened before we circle back around to Ivor and Sidra, who are going to take sort of what's next and questions. So firstly, on reflection, thank you to our amazing speakers. Everybody, there's lots of love in the chat for you. Make sure you take a look at it. Make sure your heads swell. It's really helpful for us to understand different perspectives. I too want to have a very quick personal reflection, because you know that I'm gonna. One of the things that we quite often recognise, and I think has been really evident today, that regardless of your faith, religion or spirituality, there are four key themes really that run through for all of us. First off, community, and I think that's been massively demonstrated today, so thank you everybody. Beautiful. Love for each other, support for each other, that's been huge today. Food, absolutely my favourite in every spiritual, and there's not one word for this, but kind of prayer, reflection and worship. It's all the same for all of us regardless of our spirituality, and it's amazing for us to hear lots of different perspectives today. So I just wanted to say thank you to everybody. First and foremost, it's been amazing. I can see everybody sending love. I'm going to pass back to Ivor and Sidra, and we've got a what's next and questions. What would you like to take first? Do you want to take there's two questions in the chat that we haven't got.
Questions first, I think.
Okay, so the first one is Jamila says, can you talk about people feeling that their mental health struggles are a test from God? It was from Jamila. I think it was during your time slot, Sidra.
It was
oh, there you go.
Kind of like directly. So I work predominantly, I would say 90%, with people from Muslim faith, and a lot of the things that you mentioned are very helpful and supportive, but one of the things that I think I sometimes find is, even if they accept a diagnosis, there can sometimes be a feeling of maybe disempowerment about what they can actually do in order to help themselves in that recovery process. So, and I work with people long term, so every time maybe something else happens in life, it is kind of felt, or I've certainly heard it reflected back, that it's been given to them as a test of their personal character for some reason, and then there seems to be a slight feeling of disempowerment.
Yes. Now, funny enough, I've just covered this topic from a religious point of view. There is, it's one of the last lectures and it's on my YouTube channel. It's called Hope After Hardship. And I strongly recommend that you watch that because it's got all this concept of destiny and whether it's a test or not, or it could be a punishment. It's looking at all of those things one by one. So the quickest thing for you to do would be to watch that. So I will in a minute on the chat write the details of my YouTube channel, and it's on one of the last lectures on there. I just did it last week, I think it was, Hope After Hardship. And that's looking at all of those things, whether it's a test, whether it's a punishment, what should we do? The bottom line is we still need to go out and look for remedies and medication. We still need to seek help, really. I'll put that in the chat in a minute for you.
Thank you. And while I've got you, I did note down another thing as well, which was regard to family and the support. Now, I've also found that to be, and again, like my own grandmother was Muslim as well. So I have this understanding of sometimes that close bond with family actually means that you end up taking on lots of other people's problems and issues as well. And I find it a conflict of how to make sure that people are still engaging with their families in a very supportive way, but are also kind of actually maintaining their own self-care and having appropriate and healthy boundaries where they should.
Yes, absolutely. I totally agree. There's positives and negatives really of living with close family networks. And I did actually mention both, didn't I? So at the beginning I mentioned it's a good thing because it can stop suicide and you've got more people to talk with and you've got more closer bonds with people. It keeps you happier socially. And then towards the end, I did mention that was a downfall because it can stop you accessing support and getting a diagnosis because it tarnishes the whole family. But basically, everybody needs to look at their own needs. They are their own person. They need to decide themselves as an individual on what they need to do, really. And seeking help. I think having a counsellor outside of the family is very, very important because sometimes it's within the family there's somebody there that's causing a problem. For example, toxic relationships. I've done lots of work on toxic relationships. There could be a toxic mother-in-law in the family that's causing the problems. So that person then definitely needs outside support, someone who they can talk and offload to, you know. But also I do feel outsiders need to be more culturally sensitive as well, because I've had many Muslim ladies, for example, have gone and spoken to non-Muslim counsellors and they've given the support which is not relevant really to the faith or the culture, you know, as well. So I think there a lot more awareness, cultural awareness, religious awareness is needed a lot more amongst counsellors, psychiatrists, that kind of stuff. Which is why we did this today, isn't it? Really? Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you ever so much, Sidra, and thank you, Jamila, for those questions. There's one other question. Stephen, did you want to ask the question yourself?
Question for the end, the big E. Is religion an evolutionary phenomena that is ultimately about mastering our own inner animalistic nature?
I'm not sure we've got all day to debate that topic.
And I'll put it in a context then, yeah. I mean, a lot of what people are saying, I heard the word identity come up, and I take Catherine's themes as well about community, love, even food and, you know, prayer and stuff like that. There's a lot that I think connects the past with the future in religion, and those constant questions that we all have to answer about, you know, where we're coming from, where we're going to, the big questions, I suppose. But seeing you all, you know, from the different perspectives is really, you know, helpful to me as a mental health nurse working in primary care. And I'm just wondering how that all comes together in our modern societies with those different perspectives. And are we actually, by doing things like this, creating something new that is going to take us forward as a vehicle for the future in an evolutionary way? Or are we still rooted in the past, if you see what I mean?
Yeah, I think that religion has to be evolutionary, otherwise it atrophies, and that's not taking away anything about fundamental principles of the faiths. I mean, particularly Islam, if I mention Sidra, you know, has a very strong sense of a kernel of truth which has been there since the 8th century. I mean, as far as the Bible is concerned, if you read through the Old Testament and New Testament, one of the things that strikes you about the Christian scriptures is that very much it is evolutionary. It's about people reflecting from new generational perspectives on what the relationship with God means for them. So I think, but I don't think it's just about curbing animalistic behaviour. I love that phrase. That's word for the week, isn't it? Animalistic. I mean, it is that. I mean, if you look at the 10 Commandments, they were very specifically a code of conduct for people who had been thrown into the wilderness, had been thrown into a new existence, a terrifying existence, and that the 10 Commandments were an attempt to establish a nation over and against many other nations that were around them. But I think evolutionary in this context isn't just about a two-dimensional human thing. It's about how we perceive God, how we look at God in our lives, and how we interpret how we live our faith with all the modern challenges that have been mentioned this afternoon. And I think, to be honest with you, maybe as little as 20 years ago, this conversation we're having this afternoon just wouldn't have happened. I think this Teams meeting itself is an example of how religions, all religions, are in their own way evolutionary.
Thank you.
We have few people hand raised. Probably they want to talk.
So next we had Imelda. You had your hand up first.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody, and what a fantastic afternoon, and listening to your points, etc., etc. Just for the record, I'm a practicing Catholic, so it's really interesting to hear about the mixed religions and views and help that's out there for our different communities. But my background is in domestic violence. I'm the multi-agency risk assessment team manager, and I job share, perhaps you know, Julie Jones is my partner. So to that end, I just want to put a couple of points forward in terms of honour-based abuse, regardless of what religion or Christian platform you're coming from, with regard to mental health and dementia and domestic homicide. And we do have cases in Southend, Castle Point, Rochford, Rayleigh, where we've had murders of people by someone with dementia, vascular dementia, in their late 70s, early 80s, etc., etc. And I just wanted to say something about the LGBT group of population group that we have out there. We're all humans, we're all God's children, or whoever we are, but we need to be made more aware of domestic violence. And I'm wondering how we can help you and your communities to help people. For example, let me give you an example, and please, I'm not singling out any particular religion. This is not a criticism. When a woman, and it mainly is women, we very rarely get men to the platform or as a referral in. People with different cultural backgrounds have very little help to get help for themselves. Someone mentioned confidence earlier. They haven't got the confidence because they're beaten down and downtrodden. Sadly, by family members when they live in a big community within the family. And it usually is, and I'm a mother-in-law, I'm a mother and a mother-in-law, it usually is the mother-in-law is the head of the household, and the new wife becomes a slave and a punch bag for a lot of the men in the family. And I'm wondering, what would the head of their church or their community say to them if it were me and I went to my Muslim head of the church or my Sikh person or whoever, the Baptist church? What would be said to me if I came and said that I'm getting very little sleep, I'm working day and night, I'm being beaten up, here are the marks that are on me, my children are witnessing this, they're victims of adverse childhood experiences. What help is out there for those women? In my experience, very little from the church. Now, this is not a criticism. What can we do to help raise the awareness and educate people? It's a crime in this country to commit domestic abuse, whether it's on a man or a woman or a child. It doesn't matter. Or if you're in a same-sex relationship, it's criminal. What can we do, Borough Council, who have the lead for this, and multi-agencies to educate people? I probably have gone around the bush a few times, but I think you get my meaning.
Yeah.
And this is out to everybody. It's not just to Ivor and to Sidra. This is for everybody.
Yes. I mean, I'd like to just quickly start by answering that myself. So, for example, I run a women's group called Women Together, which is actually one of the clusters for Essex Mind&Spirit. And we actually deal with topics like that. So we actually invited a Muslim police officer who you may know, Nick. Her name is Nick. She's Muslim now. And she is specialized and worked within domestic violence. And she came and empowered all the ladies, and she explained all the different categories of what domestic violence is, which includes toxic relationships, toxic marriages. A lot of the ladies didn't know, they thought that domestic violence was only physical violence. They were not aware it includes emotional violence. And one of the ladies actually afterwards did then go to the Citizen Advice Bureau and then eventually did leave her husband after that speaker came. So it's holding lots more sessions like this, really, where a police officer comes in and talks about what is domestic violence, what are the categories, but also mix it in with religion, because something we spoke about there also was, for example, your mother-in-law is not your mother, it's your husband's mother. It's up to him to look after his mother. You are not obliged to even live with them. You can live in your own home. You've got your own privacy.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And the police are powerful. They really are. Social workers are very aware. Teachers, but I'm not. It's the cultural perspective, cultural shame perception in some of the religions, and what's accepted as the norm in some religions. I mean, as a Catholic growing up in the west of Ireland, you know, when I was a young girl, many, many years ago, it was accepted that it happened in families. I mean, today, it's a criminal offence.
I think
the same way as
better with the younger generation as well. So with all the new British-born children are getting married, they're not living with mother-in-laws and things like that.
No, they're not.
They know where their limits are. They know, you know, the boundaries.
They do.
What I'm going to do, if it's all right with you, is move on to the next person that had their hand up. Thank you very much for your question, and thanks for the answers, guys. I'm sure most of these things we could debate all day. Richard, you had your hand up. I'm going to bring you in.
So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. I'm Richard. Really lovely to be here as a guest. Thank you so much. Lovely to see a few old friends, Sidra, Ivor. Yeah, no, it was interesting. I wanted to respond really to, I think it was Stephen's question about the evolution of religion. Is it a response, a natural human response, you know, to, or a kind of a natural evolutionary response to, you know, trying to manage our animalistic kind of tendencies? It's difficult to answer that in the sense that I think it's a yes and no thing. I think yes, I think religion, religion was born out of civilization being created. We have records going back now, hundreds of thousands of years ago that sort of suggested that at the point when human beings started to live in settled communities, that part of the social order and everything that was created was was around religion. Religion was kind of born at the same sort of time that people were, or formal religion as we recognize it today was born out of that period of history. However, again, human beings have always strived to understand the world, the universe around them, either via God or via other means, or gods, or whatever belief that they might hold. It might be worship to nature and all that sort of stuff. So in some religious practices, if you want to use a very broad term, they embrace their animistic tendencies, actually. So there is, not all religions are monotheistic. They're not all based on the worship of God. They're not all based on that. Some religious practices are based on other things. So the answer is yes and no. However, of course, as human consciousness has evolved, as we have developed as human beings, then of course our religious practices have evolved. And obviously this is evident within the Judeo-Christian root of the Abrahamic root of religious development. We have now obviously Islam, we have Christianity, we have Judaism, of course, we have all of the other offshoots from that as well. Same within Buddhism, of course. Same with all religions. They've all developed in response to the cultures that have developed them, I believe. That's my take on it, because obviously we're all human beings living, and that this word's come up quite a lot today, I believe. But I think I agree with Ivor 100% in the sense that, and Sidra, and all of you actually, that religion should be something that evolves. The fact that we're meeting in this way. I mean, I remember my first meetings within the Mid-Essex Interfaith Forum some years ago, and how impressed I was that actually people from all these different communities could come together and discuss their beliefs. And I think community is the key word here, because we're all part of a different community. And I think even the issues that have just been raised within sort of honour-based violence and all that sort of stuff, these are community issues, cultural issues, not necessarily religious issues perhaps, but obviously we could go into a big debate about that. But those are the points that I'd like to make, if that's okay. So there you are. Thank you
very much. So Smita, you had your hand up next.
Yes, thank you. I was just going back to Stephen again. I just wanted to say that in Hinduism, we believe in Shiva and Shakti, male, female, and all these things lies within us. We believe that God is within us, each one of us. So, and there is also the animal side and the spiritual side. They both reside within us. And it's about not mastering it, but balancing it. So we are not denying that there are animal instincts. Kama, the desire, they are there. We are not denying it, but it's about balancing the whole thing. And I do believe that if followed properly, religion could help us evolve into a higher human being. And I also believe that religion is very evolutionary, because eventually, whether it's the digital era that we are in right now, our children are constantly using this device, that device, and we are talking in bytes and all those things rather than chips and various, all these terms, the new digital terms. But eventually, I believe that everything leads to the same higher spiritual plane of life. And wherever we are at this moment, whatever we are doing, we are going to evolve into that higher plane. And that is our goal is to reach that plane. So we have people in the past generation have achieved those planes. Our generation will do so, and so the future will, because the cosmos, the universe, is always going to be the way it is. Even though various things, the nature changes, everything changes, but the cosmos, universe is the same, and the spiritual level is always there. So we are all aiming towards the same evolution, same plane.
That's
Thank you.
amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you for, I think that is all of our questions now. Ivor, did you have something you wanted to pose for people, did you say earlier?
Thanks, Catherine. Yeah, it was just an appeal really from Essex Mind&Spirit. Sorry to be sort of direct and selfish about this, but as I said at the beginning, we have 4 groups around Essex at the moment, cluster groups, which try and encourage precisely these kind of conversations that we've had this afternoon. And I'll give you some, I mean, Sidra's already talked about what she did with regard to domestic abuse. I mean, she runs a cluster group in Basildon. We've got the chaplain of spiritual care lead of Farley Hospice coming in a couple of weeks' time to talk to the Mid-Essex cluster group about death and dying from a multi-faith perspective, and the death journey, walking together through bereavement and loss. And really, we've never had a cluster group in the Southend area, and it's just really to ask people, especially on the back of what they've heard today, and I've heard lots of things that's encouraged me in terms of people who might support such a group. If there's anyone out there, hello, who would like to think about helping us to form a specific mental health and spirituality group, a cluster group for the Southend and Westcliff and Lee area. The cluster groups operate on a 3-monthly, 4-monthly basis, so it's not terribly onerous. And essentially, it is simple in concept. We would need a venue. We would need a small committee of people who'd be prepared to organise speakers and some simple lunch, and to have to build a kind of local area group, a database of people interested in the subject who'd like to know more about mental health generally, and specifically how faith and spirituality might interconnect and dialogue with that. So it's a kind of an appeal really, and if anyone would be interested in talking to me and Sidra about that, you have our contact details, then do please get in touch.
Yes, I mean, I'd just like to add on there that we can help you a lot in terms of speakers and topics as well, because we've been doing, you know, this for quite a while in all the different clusters. And if you had a topic in mind, we could even provide you with a speaker for free. Or if you ask us, we can even give you topic names and things like that. Basically, and I've got a whole database of people who I can reach out to help with the audience as well. I've got about over 350 people who the emails go out to. So it's just a matter of getting a venue in your, you know, area, and maybe a little bit of lunch, or even you can just have tea or coffee. It doesn't have to be lunch. And we can help you. I can even make the poster for you as well. All depends on what kind of help you want. So just to make your task easier. And we will come along and support as well, won't we, Ivor?
Certainly will. Yeah.
Fantastic. I've got a few hands up, so I'm just going to visit those hands. Bear with me 2 seconds. I just want to find out which one of you went first. Aileen.
Hi, Sidra.
Hello. I haven't seen you for years. How are you?
8 years to be exactly.
Yeah.
So I used to attend your group in Basildon as well.
Yes, I remember you coming to Women Together, yes.
That's right, yes. I used to actually run a Muslim men group in Southend, as you remember,
yes,
and a ladies group. And I mean, I'd love to start that again, but I'm just haven't got the time. And maybe because we are short of staff, maybe when we do get fully staffed, I could start something again. I can just see it starting again. I know the venue, I know everywhere where to start. And I'd love to do it again, because I had the ladies group and the men's group, and it went on for about 10 years through the Reason Project Mind. So I'd love to do that again, because I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, well, if
Thanks,
you can,
Aileen.
I will help you with that as well.
Well, yeah, that'd be brilliant.
I was running in Brentwood was under Reason as well.
That's right. Yes, yes.
Amazing.
Watch this space. I'll see if we do get more staff that come in, then I'd love to start the group again.
Yes.
Gonna move on a little bit.
There was a suggestion that we look at doing possibly a conference, maybe a morning somewhere in Southend, precisely on this topic of mental health and spirituality, inviting quite a wide number of people, and seeing where that goes as well.
I will be quiet again, and just to say thank you so much to everybody for speaking today. It's really interesting. And then I will turn myself off and pass over to Kath to do a closer.
Right, folks, I'm just gonna summarise finally. Okay, folks, thank you ever so much for all of our speakers today. I strongly believe, and have said for years, that part of the issue with mental health for all of us is we have lost our spiritual community. I practice something called human givens, and human givens suggests that human beings get nutrients from the environment that they're surrounding, as well as physical needs. We have a set of environmental needs, we have this set of emotional needs, and most of them have been fulfilled over time with some sort of spiritual practice. Ergo, it's pretty healthy, and I absolutely loved Sidra's PowerPoint today, where the benefits of religion makes me want to sign up to everything, quite frankly. Fantastic today. Thank you ever so much for all of your offerings today. It's been amazing. The Mental Health Partnership Forum is a place of learning. I feel like I've done a lot today, and I'm sure lots of other people feel that they've done so too. So I would like to thank you all very much. Please do read the chat, folks. There's lots of love out there for you, and feel glorified in the praise that you're getting today. So thanks everybody, and we'll see you at the next Mental Health Partnership Forum. Thank you everybody, and thanks again to our speakers. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye bye now.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.